Hello folks and welcome to F1 Live, your post-race show. Coming to you live from the paddock here at Istanbul Park. Will Buxton with you, and I am joined by Alex Albon. Alex, thanks for coming on the show, man.
No worries. Hello.
Hello. Now, what a Grand Prix we've witnessed today. Valtteri Bottas, of course, had pole position, but he had to fight for the win. Max Verstappen coming home a brilliant P2, Sergio Perez P3. But the story of the day really was this weather, starting out on the intermediate tyres in wet conditions. Some drivers trying to go all the way to the end on one set. Only one driver did, Esteban Ocon, but tough conditions out there today.
It was pretty impressive. I think firstly on to give Valtteri credit, if you look at where it was last year, you know, he's really struggled in these kind of conditions, and he's come out and he's looked so in control all race. And even the laps at the end that he was doing, they were seriously quick. So yeah, it looked comfortable. Obviously, around the midfield end of it, I felt like a lot of experience that was happening last year went into this weekend, because the graining and the tires becoming slicks, and then all that kind of last minute degradation. It was all there, and it was all really similar to last year.
It was Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc were the two last drivers to come in and stop, ultimately because they were forced to. Lewis Hamilton, though, really unhappy, apparently got out of his car after the race, having dropped back to 5th position, having been looking at a podium, went to see the tyres that had been taken off his car, saw they had a decent amount of life in them, and was fuming that he hadn't been left out, because he'd made the call to stay out. The team wanted to call him in. He said, no, I want to stay out. And as that dry line formed in the closing laps, it looked like that might have been the right choice, to stay out, not to come in.
It is. I also think when you're playing a championship, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw the tyres coming in for most teams. They're all on their canvas, and the last thing you want, is a DNF, and that's it. You fall so far behind Max in the championship, then it's going to take you, 5-6 races to claw back again. So it's playing your, hedging your bets.
Yeah.
And yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not Mercedes. I'm not Lewis. Maybe they could have got away with it. Maybe they knew more than we did.
It would have been a 1-point gap between the two of them going to the next race in Austin. As it is, it's far more than that. But we've got a driver on the show right now, apart from your good self, obviously. Alex, Mick Schumacher. Mick, I know you were so looking forward to today and to this race, and ultimately it all went to hell right at the start when Alonso nerfed you out of position. But yeah. Did you manage to have some fun out there today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was challenging. Driving the tires right down to the carcass was definitely fun. And twitching around, trying to find the grip everywhere. Definitely can take some out of it.
Your qualifying performance yesterday was absolutely outstanding. What is it about these conditions that you enjoy so much?
I don't know. It's been already in go-karting times that I just enjoy driving it, and very early on, driving only on slicks in those conditions just gave me, I think, a good feeling, and I probably just brought it over into Formula One.
We can see your confidence growing week in, week out. You go to Austin now, home race for the team. How much are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I haven't been in the last 5 years, so definitely going to be spending some time over there, hopefully to also be ready when the weekend comes.
Thanks very much for coming on the show, Mick. Appreciate it. Mick's having a really nice little run at the moment. Difficult, obviously, for him as a rookie with a team that isn't developing the car, really didn't develop the car from last season into this season either. How impressed have you been with the way that he's adapting to life at Formula One?
Yeah, exactly. I think, firstly, it's hard for anyone really to know where the drivers are at. When you're at the bottom and you're fighting for 19th and 20th, it's always going to be difficult for anyone to see what they're doing. But you can see the progress. That's the main thing. And I think coming into next year, hopefully Haas will have that more competitive car, be able to fight in that midfield section, and then we'll really see how it goes. But honestly, especially when you see mixed conditions, that's when drivers find their worth. And obviously, Michael was very good at that, and yeah. I'm sure Mick is too.
Let's have a look at the classified results at the end then of this Turkish Grand Prix, which, as we said, saw Valtteri Bottas record a quite brilliant win from pole position, ahead of the two Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez.
They didn't do Sergio well in this photo, must I say. I think because they got the new suits out, and it was all Last minute.
Slightly rushed. Charles Leclerc came home P4. He'll be disappointed with that on a day when he could have been on the podium. Lewis Hamilton desperately displeased with P5. Then Pierre Gasly and Lando Norris. Carlos Sainz, driver of the day. What a drive from him. Lance Stroll, P9. Esteban Ocon did not take a pit stop today and came home with a point in 10th. Behind them, the Alfa Romeo duo of Antonio Giovinazzi and Kimi Raikkonen narrowly missing out on the points at the closing stages. Then Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda, George Russell and Fernando Alonso, Nicholas Latifi, Sebastian Vettel, Mick Schumacher, who we've just heard from, and Nikita Mazepin. Now, we said there, Carlos Sainz, driver of the day, and in the early part of the race, he was, I gotta say, he was a joy to watch today, starting in P19, making his way through the field. It was really exciting watching Carlos.
Yeah, he was very calculated. There was no kind of rash moves. I think there was the little one with Sebastian into the hairpin, but it was a good move. I think, you know, when you're on the brakes like that, it's always going to be a little bit sketchy, let's say. But he drove really well. I think it looked like at the beginning of the race there was quite a lot of action going on. Like you could do a lot of moves, and I think because there was not so much of a dry line, there were kind of people going around the outside, inside.
This was the incident with Seb. Little squirrely moment.
Exactly. But then once the track dried out, you could see how much more difficult it got to overtake, and I think that's where it was. Even when Pierre and Lando caught up to Lewis at the end, once there's one line, it's really hard as a car, as a driver, to get that free air, because, you know, for us, with all this downforce, going offline is where you get the free pockets of air. So actually, to stay close to another car, you have to do different lines. But when there's a small dry line, you're kind of forced to stay right behind the other car.
So tell me about this, because obviously we started in wet conditions on the intermediate tyre, and the drivers are all taking the very similar line. Then the drivers have to take a very different line because you need to cool down the intermediates. And then as the intermediate becomes that slick, you need to head back onto that dry line again.
Yeah, it's a weird one, actually. So a lot of this came from last year, and I think a lot of teams realized just how the Inters work. It's quite a strange tyre. Firstly, it can last the whole race, which is pretty astonishing, as Esteban proved today. But also, when you're in this greasy weather, there's a weird pattern to it where it's very good straight away, then it grains, and as you see, you know, with Lewis and Charles at the end of the race there, they go through this difficult phase, and then it cleans up again.
We've just been talking about you, Carlos.
Oh,
man, driver of the day. What a brilliant run in the early part of the race. The slow pit stop, oh man. But, I mean, what a great drive, what a great day. Are you happy at the flag?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had a lot of fun, to be honest. Those first 15 laps, pretty much overtaking a car per lap was just probably the most fun I've had in a Formula 1 car in a long time, no? So, yeah, very happy about it. Obviously, the slow pit stop leaves you a bit wondering. It could have been a better result in the end, but especially because the last 10 laps I was also flying. You know, when the track nearly dried out, I think I did a few consecutive fastest laps, and I was catching a lot the people in front. But it's not a day to have any regrets, or it's not a day to be disappointed about. I think it's a day to be really happy and positive about what we just did.
What was your favorite pass?
The most risky one was the Seb one. I actually apologized to him, because if he would have turned in a tiny bit earlier, maybe I wasn't here right now, no? But he's a great racer, and I don't know, I did a few. I need to go through a race, because pretty much all of them were on the same spot, so they are all quite similar. Some of them I had to send it from quite far back, others I managed to get side by side. It was just great fun, you know, when it was full wet, there was not only the dry line, so I could brake later in different places. When it got drier, there was only the dry line, and it was super difficult to pass.
I know you've been saying from the start of the weekend that you were excited about the fact you knew you'd be starting from the back. How excited are you for the remainder of the season? Now you know what this car's potential is with the upgraded power unit in the back.
It's positive. I'm glad that we've taken it out of the way, also in a wet race where you can pass like we did today. I think it was a great decision and a great recovery. So now we can focus in the last 6 races. You've seen lately I'm quite a bit more confident with the car. I can play around with it a bit more in the race. I'm doing more moves, more late braking, so it means that I'm getting confident, and and now we have 6 races with an upgraded power unit that should give us a bit of an edge, and hopefully we can enjoy it.
Beautiful race.
Thank you.
Well done, man. Great drive, great drive. From Carlos, great drive from this guy
Hey, Will.
as
Hey,
well. We were just talking about his slow pit stop. You didn't need to worry about pit stops today.
Well, first of all, I want to say huge congrats to Alex. I'm happy to see him
you,
back
mate.
on
Thank
the
you.
grid next year because I know what he's been through, and it's good that you're back with us. But that was tough. That was tough. We thought just giving a break to the guys in the garage. You know, they had enough. You know, stops every race. Let's try and do without, of course. But no. In all seriousness, it was very tight because I think one more corner I would have lost the top 10. And probably one more lap I would have get a puncture. So yeah, on the limit, but you know, a small reward, we get a point, so that's good.
At what point in the race did you know that you were going to just not stop?
At the time that Seb stopped, basically I was fighting with Seb trying to get past. Basically the team, you know, was wondering if we should pit or not. And I told them, no, let's stay out. We try, you know, let's go. And yeah, lost quite a lot of performance towards the end, but you know, in the end we finished.
It was an amazing day for you, an amazing drive as well. Just how difficult were the conditions to read, particularly in terms of keeping the right line at the right time with the tyres going through those different phases?
Yeah, no, it was more difficult than last year, I would say. Not in terms of grip, because we were lapping much faster, but it was more difficult to, you know, judge and think, you know, if we were going to slicks or not, because towards the end it was not far off. There was a dry line. It dried more than last year. But yeah, still, you know, pretty much the same thing happened. You know, nobody really pitted on the slicks. So it is very interesting as a race. And, you know, probably next year when we come back, it's going to be good enough for slicks.
Lovely stuff, man. Thanks for coming on the
Thank
show.
you.
Great drive. Well done. What Esteban was saying there, very much in line with what you were saying about reading the conditions, knowing where you're at with the tyres, picking the right line at the right time.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. Also, credit to Esteban because it's really not easy to make them calls because it's so everyone's doing their own thing. You got people pitting very early like Daniel did. You got Seb obviously trying the slick tyre, and it's one of them things because once you commit, and then it's that thing of I'm out there, I'm by myself, and I'm going backwards in terms of pace. And it's just how quickly am I going to go backwards, and that's not a nice thing. And on top of that, you've got tyres that are down to their canvas, and they could blow up at any point.
So this is the mad thing with the slick going down to the intermediate going down to almost a slick.
Yes.
So Seb thinks, and Aston think this is our time. Let's give it a go. But as they ultimately found out, no time for dries. And you know, when you are out on a wet track, on slick tyres, and we could see Seb, he's going up into the left-hander.
He did an amazing job to keep it on track.
Well, he's going into the left-handers, and he's turning right just to try and keep it on track. How hard is that when you don't have the control?
Yeah, it's nothing you can explain in terms of a feeling because it's not like when you're driving around. It's not even black ice kind of feeling when you're on a road car. It's more like. It's nothing. It really is nothing. It's like nothing you've ever experienced where you might as well be being I don't know on these kind of ancient tyres just because on wooden tyres because it's so slippery out there and you've got no feeling at all and it's all about temperature. Once you can get the temperature in them, it's fine. The tyre starts working. But as you see today, it's so cold. I'm sure if you could get the temperature in to begin with, it would have been fine. But the slower you go, obviously, the more the tyre drops. And you could see even in the pit lane.
Yeah.
He was pretty much at the very bottom there.
Yeah, this was it. I mean, Seb, even just applying a little bit of power.
It was actually quite a nice move. It was quite a stylish entry.
Very stylish.
It's very James Bond.
On the slide. Lando Norris back in the points.
Oh, Bono.
How's it going?
Very well, how are you, mate?
Fine.
It's been a while, I've not seen you.
I've been busy.
Yeah?
No, not really.
Just doing what?
Yeah. How was it?
Not nice. Like, I probably would have preferred being in your position today, just watching everyone struggle. No, I wouldn't. Yeah, it was good fun because it was so difficult, but it was also so difficult, so it was like just very tricky to, very difficult to follow and overtake.
It looked hard to know when to push and when to save. Like it looked hard when to push or when to save. Like
Yeah.
especially at the end there, it was almost like you went, okay, let's just push at this point and just go to the end and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's just like getting through this, because you have the tread on the Inter,
Yeah.
but it was too dry to have a lot of tread.
Yeah.
So you have to get through that and just like destroys the tyre. So then you feel like, oh, I need to back off because I'm just destroying the tyre. But then it gets to the slick and then you can suddenly push a lot more.
Yes. You're quick at the end, like super quick at the end.
Yeah, like the end of the race, we were good. I think we had it in that good window, and the guys ahead of us were struggling a bit more, so we managed to catch them. But then they got through it as well. Like Leclerc was really slow, got through the graining, and the last 2 laps he was miles faster again. So just difficult to keep it in this good window.
Nice.
Nice.
You keep going.
No,
Yeah,
that was it. That's what I got. That's what I got.
Yes.
I know, because it was a bit like that last year, and I felt
Yeah,
like
it was
last
exactly
year,
the same. So
you-
like,
yeah,
I don't know why, but this surface is, because it doesn't dry out very quickly, it's too wet for a slick, but too slick for an Inter. Because the Inter is a very soft tyre, when you run it to slick, it's actually like got good performance.
yeah.
You know, and you can almost do turn 8 flat on a intermediate, but it turns into the slick. So a lot of our judgments today were done because of last season, and kind of getting to that phase was very important.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was thinking this actually, like I was listening to Bottas's engineer, and they're giving so much advice in terms of, okay, you stop cooling your tyres, start pushing again, and they were pretty much alternating when to cool their tyres down and when to push again.
Yeah.
Were you getting the same kind of feedback?
I mean, I was getting info.
No, but I was surprised about how much info he was getting
Yeah.
on that side. I don't know if you were getting that much.
I think I was just getting the info I needed, really. I was like asking, because I was protecting a lot in 8, because I didn't want to over-destroy the tyre.
Yeah.
And then they told, like, I asked, can I push a bit more? And they said, yeah, you can push here, but be careful in these couple
Can
corners.
I have some
So
more, please?
I probably had 3 radio comms I needed. I don't know how much Bottas was getting, but like us comparing to Lewis, you know, the final stint, we were a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes there can be too much, sometimes there's not enough. But also driver preference, you know, sometimes our driver wants a lot and doesn't.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks for coming on the show, man.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Great to see you back.
I wish I could say the same.
Right, how about we head back to the studio now? Sam Collins wants to run us through the strategy of what was a pretty crazy race, Sam. And as we're hearing from all of the drivers here, just knowing or trying to predict when to change, if to change, onto those fresh intermediates.
Well, Will, it looks like there was one strategy that worked and a few other ideas that didn't work so well. And the strategy that worked was, predictably, the strategy used by Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen, stopping sort of in the middle of the race, putting on a new set of intermediates and going to the finish. The tyres were all wearing out, as we heard from the drivers already. But the first team to really get the strategy wrong was McLaren, Lando Norris's own team. Not quite sure what went on with those discussions about pitting Daniel Ricciardo so early in the race. You saw he came in quite early, whacked on a set of new intermediates and tried to go to the end of the race on those tyres. And that didn't really work out. He never got the pace into the car, and towards the end of the race was struggling like crazy. And then there was another approach that was actually mystifying to me. It was that of Aston Martin with Sebastian Vettel. We were hearing those radio messages coming through from the team about, well, it'll go to slick before the end of the race. So they put on a set of slick tyres, at a point where it was pretty apparent to almost everybody at the circuit that it wasn't dry enough for slick tyres. And the result is what you can see. And at that James Bond-style driving manoeuvre that Alex Albon was talking about, and it just didn't work out. I don't know what Aston Martin were thinking about going for slicks. And then the other approach that didn't work was that, or sort of worked, was that of Esteban Ocon. We have to mention him because we've seen him already. He decided not to pit at all, and that worked out. He got points because Daniel Ricciardo's strategy completely failed, and Alfa Romeo were too slow, and Aston Martin tried slicks, bizarrely. The final approach that didn't work was almost the opposite of Ricciardo. It was that of Lewis Hamilton. We heard him on the team radio trying to go the same way as Esteban Ocon, but when he did come into the pits, you see how worn out those intermediate tyres were. They were almost down to a slick. Had he carried on with those tyres, looking at the data, I think he was doomed to either be 4th or 5th anyway, so the overall result probably wasn't going to be that different. However, I think what Mercedes did is they pitted him too late. Actually, had Hamilton pitted at the point that the team originally called him in, I think actually the team would have got him to the point where the tyre was getting that good performance, that good temperature and that good wear level to get almost down to that slick level, so he could almost take turn 8 flat, get those good lap times. But as it was, he put in one really good lap, but then the temperature went away from the tyres. They started to grain. He hadn't got the performance, and he nearly lost out to Pierre Gasly just at the end of the race. He was lucky to hold him off. So ultimately, a little bit of an inconclusive race on tyre strategy, but I'm really looking forward to hearing from some of the drivers down there in the paddock wheel, particularly Sebastian Vettel, because I really want to understand more about that decision to go on slicks when it was so obvious to all of us that it wasn't slick conditions. And also Alex is there. I wonder what he thinks of that decision as well. Over to you, Will.
If you think we're going to get Sebastian Vettel on the show, you're dreaming, mate. He's long gone. Long gone. What do you think about the decision to go on to slicks?
Optimistic, really optimistic.
Yeah.
Like it was a tricky one, but I could see why. I think even Esteban said it was actually not that clear when you're driving, and it was more that I was surprised because he was in a points position more than anything else.
Well, yeah.
That's what I was more surprised. But if it was outside, let's say the top 12,
like P14 or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like Hail Mary.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. But sometimes you roll the dice and you win. We've seen that a lot of times, and I mean, I can't knock the effort for trying. But yeah, it's one of them things. And even the thing is, the soft tyre is too soft, but it would have really helped in these conditions. But you can't run a soft because it degrades so quickly. So he had to do the medium tyre instead of the soft. And then when you're on the medium, to get it to switch on, it was really tricky. Maybe the last 5 laps would have worked, but if you go also at the last 5 laps, then you don't actually benefit from going on slick tyres. So
Very
you had
true.
to do it then or never.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and that was it.
Well then, let's hear. We can actually hear from Seb, I believe, from the pen moments ago. Seb spoke to Laura Winter.
Seb, I'm so sorry. It was a gamble worth taking, but one that didn't pay off ultimately to go on to the slicks. Just talk us through how challenging it was out there on them.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't make them work, so it was the wrong call. I wanted to try because there wasn't much rubber left on the inters, so I thought the dry is not any different or probably a little bit better because the grip is higher, but it couldn't break the tire in, and then couldn't get any grip, so we lost the race today there.
I can sense disappointment. It's clear to see. Can you just sum up how you're feeling?
Can you?
Sum up how you're feeling right now.
Well, I'm obviously disappointed having made the wrong call. On the other hand, you know, it was tempting to try, but yeah, it was the wrong decision. So we lost, I think, the run for points, maybe 1 or 2, and in the end we didn't get any.
Hard luck. Better luck next time. Thanks, Seb.
Right, let's hear, why don't we, from Lewis Hamilton, desperately disappointed with P5. We know that from just his body language and radio at the end of the race. But let's hear from him as he looks back over the Turkish Grand Prix.
Lewis, not to be for you today, but starting P11, finishing P5 and gambling with that strategy to potentially try the slick to mediate like Esteban Ocon did, like Charles Leclerc was potentially doing. How do you reflect on it all now?
I mean, I've only just got out of the car, so I don't have all the information. But I feel like I should have stayed out. My gut feeling was to stay, and I feel that's what I should have done. So frustrated in myself for not following my gut. But I work as a team, so did the best I could with the advice I was getting.
And a word on Valtteri Bottas, your teammate as well, who took the win.
Yeah, good job, great job.
And
thanks.
of course, Max Verstappen has taken the lead back in that championship battle too. A word on that.
Yeah, we lost a few points today, so but that's the last life.
It is. Thank you, Lewis. Better luck next time.
Oh, we did the best. I did the best I could with the information I was given. Let's hear from Toto Wolff.
Toto, congratulations. Bottas' first win of the season. And we could probably say that was a near perfect drive. How was it for you?
Yeah, he was sensational from the get-go. Had a fantastic start, controlled the pace, was the quickest out there and handled the tires best. So that's a 10 out of 10.
Perfect, perfect. Well, when it comes to Lewis, I mean, we heard he had a lot of discussions with the engineers and deciding on what's going to happen about the tyre and the track condition. What was happening in the background? How was it?
I think we tried at a certain stage to hang it out and maybe finish third, but then the pace dropped off so much it was clear that we would have also been overtaken by Gasly, by Perez and Leclerc in any case, so we decided to pit. So either you played very conservative and you fight it out on track with Perez and Leclerc, or you take a little bit of a gamble with a bit of bigger probability. That's what we did, and ended up fifth where we were before that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lovely to hear from Toto doing the interview there. Jason Tahinchi for fans of vintage GP2. I would tell you where we're going to go next, but it's raining and my notes are completely ruined. Dwayne's telling me Pierre Gasly, who finished in an excellent, I think it says sixth. Great run from Pierre in the wet. Penalty, we'll talk about that, but let's hear from Pierre first. Oh, it's normally camera 2, isn't
Pierre, P6 for you with a 5-second penalty. What might have been today without that penalty? What do you make of it? And indeed the collision at the start.
I think I'm really pleased with our performance. You know, to be back in the top 6 is fantastic, and also only 10 seconds from the podium, considering we had the 5-second time penalty. So we're clearly in the mix today, finishing a couple seconds behind Lewis. And yeah, not far from Charles as well ahead, but yeah, happy with that. At the start, yeah, there was the contact with Fernando. We were 3 wide, and it's obviously always very tricky in this sort of situation. So yeah, I haven't really seen the footage yet, but yeah, there was a contact. Tried to go pretty much where I could, but with Sergio inside and him on the outside was pretty tight coming into turn 1.
Considering how the race unfolded and you're standing here now P6, how much confidence are you taking from this into Austin?
Very happy. I mean, the last 2 previous races in terms of performance was really good, but we know that on Sunday, we didn't really maximize the opportunities, and I think this weekend that's what we did, and the target is clearly to perform that way until the end of the year.
Right, Alex, let's talk penalties. We got a replay there of the turn 1 incident. Obviously, Checo's up the inside, Pierre's in the middle, Fernando's on the outside. Is that worth 5 seconds?
Well, no way. Not to me. I feel like, well, firstly, it's that rule, unwritten rule, you know, first corners, first laps. Stewards tend to take quite a sensible approach.
They have
to
a
things.
let them race policy.
A let them race policy. And to me, that's as much let them race as it gets, in the sense that, I mean, it's quite clear, I'm sure most people, I think, would agree, in the sense that obviously Checo's had a good start, he's put his nose in, as he's entitled to do. Pierre gives him the space, obviously gets sandwiched, as he says on the radio, but more than anything, it's just I don't know what the stewards expected Pierre to do. The only thing I could say or think that they think about is that he left a bit too much space in between himself and Checo, but honestly, in these conditions, when you do have a car coming in on the inside like that, you're not going to give them the exact car width. You're going to give them a car width and a little bit more, just to give them yourself that
because
wiggle
Perez
room.
could have slid
exactly, exactly, and so you're not going to. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was was it an early decision that they did? I'm not sure if they maybe reviewed it a little bit too quickly and
they took a little bit of time over it, but
yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Whereas I think the Alonso one was a little bit more clear
cut.
Yeah.
The Alonso one is clear cut.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think there's any disagreement with that, but
No.
that for me is insane. And I don't get it, because
what's good for us? Oh, as a team, as Red Bull, obviously it's a bit of a shame because, you know, he finished within a couple of seconds of Lewis, and 5 seconds, that would have been very nice, and you know, Pierre would have helped Max in the championship. So it's one of them things, I think. Yeah.
But as regardless of championship and points and
Yes.
finishing positions and all this, as drivers,
Yeah.
when you see incidents like that and you're told you can, you know, you're racing drivers.
Yes.
You know, you're not going out there to deliberately knock somebody out. That's not a deliberate incident, and he's not made a massive error. Are you left scratching your heads as to, well, what the hell are we supposed to do if we get a 5-second penalty for that?
Yeah, I won't be surprised if they say at the next driver's briefing they made the wrong call, because I don't see how it could be a penalty.
Do you think the stewards
Yeah.
were maybe mindful of the fact that coming into this weekend, Fernando had been very vocal about the fact that other people don't get penalised for things?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think they're that kind of they're influenced that easily.
I don't want to get you in trouble. Sorry.
but no, for me it's more just it's just the wrong call.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
It is that simple, isn't it? It is that simple. Okay, why don't we head back to the studio quickly and chat to Sam Collins.
Hello, Will. It's interesting for me hearing those comments from Alex Albon, a man who himself has had a little bit of a penalty charge for people running around the outside. Just talking about Pierre Gasly, he picked up 2 penalty points for that, as well as the 5-second penalty in the race. Another driver who picked up 2 penalty points during the race as well was Fernando Alonso for that moment that we saw earlier in the race. And that wasn't the moment with Perez, that was the moment with one of the Haas cars, and you get to see it momentarily, and it is, for me, as I do agree with you, this is a pretty clear-cut penalty. He just comes from far too far back, clatters into the back of the Haas and spins him round. Didn't do much damage to the car because the track surface was too low. And actually, it turns out that this Grand Prix, normally in this segment, I talk about the retirements and reasons for retirement in the race. And there haven't been any retirements for this race for the first time in only 11th time in Formula 1's history, unless you count the Belgian Grand Prix from a couple of races ago. That's the 5-second penalty you just saw there for Alonso. But it's the only 11th time in Formula 1 history, if you don't include the Belgian Grand Prix a few weeks ago, that no cars have retired. However, I did think during the race, one driver was going to invoke the attention of the race stewards. And that was Sergio Perez during for what was, for me, was the high point of the race, the battle between Perez and Lewis Hamilton. Now, you can see the two drivers were really fighting hard for track position. Hamilton pushed Perez wide, but fairly, though interesting to hear what Alex says about that. And you saw that Perez went behind the bollard and onto the painted area of the pit entry. Now, this is a rule that changes from circuit to circuit depending on the layout of the pit entry. If you did that at some tracks, you'd definitely get a penalty. However, at this venue, at Istanbul Park, you don't get a penalty for crossing that painted area behind the bollard if it's clear that you had no intention to come into the pits. And it was very clear that Sergio Perez really didn't intend to come into the pits, and that's why he didn't get a penalty here. But the case that he pushed him a little bit wide, well, again, back to Will and Alex Albon, and Alex is a driver who has experienced those discussions in race control. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Alex, it was a wonderful fight between Lewis and Checo.
Yeah, very good.
And I think it would have been awful if Checo had been sort of investigated for going that side of the bollard. Obviously, nothing he could do.
Exactly. I think they got that bit right. You know, that's racing. Of course, you get squeezed and you get moved around a little bit on track. But as long as it's in the name aim, you know, no one's really getting advantage or anything like that. It was a good job. And obviously, you know, with
a great fight.
Yeah, it was a really good fight. I think clearly the Mercs were a little bit quicker down the straights this weekend.
But Checo, I mean, the defensive line around here is wonderful, because you think here Lewis has done it, he's done him, and Checo to keep his foot in around the outside, has the inside for the final corner.
Very good, and then sticks it out as well for the last one.
Yeah,
into turn 1.
And keeps it ahead through turn 1, turn 2. I think we're going to get all of it. Please, let's have it.
I also have to say this track, it's so good for this kind of stuff. You know, like Turkey as a circuit for drivers, it's great because it's not only is it enjoyable to drive, but you get exactly that kind of racing. You know, them last 3 corners have been designed so well that you can go side by side for.
Well, that was very reminiscent of Lewis and Timo Glock fighting in exactly those corners back in 2006 in GP2. Exactly the same. Exactly the same. Absolutely brilliant. Let's hear though from your boss, Christian Horner. 2 cars on the podium today, and Christian was chatting, I believe, with Jason Tahinchi.
Christian, you must be chuffed, I guess. Is that the best you could have done, or could you have actually won with Max, do you think?
I think the win was out of the question today, so to get second and third, retake the lead in the Drivers' Championship, you know, both cars up there on the podium, you know, that was a very strong day for us today, and, you know, particularly, you know, running this tribute livery for Honda this weekend, you know, great to see, you know, both the drivers up there.
How did you see Perez and Lewis's basically battle? We were on our toes actually. It was pretty close.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was, you know, great racing from Checo. You know, he was firm, but at one point he was in the pit lane. But he didn't give up. He kept doing exactly what we expect, and you know, it was fantastic that you know, he put a performance in like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and good luck for the next races.
Thank you very much.
That was nice to hear from Christian. You may wonder what I've got in my hand, or why Alex has been looking a bit perturbed through the show. I keep getting things written on a board for me, so I know where we're going. And Alex thought that said stupid every time he was talking, and they were pointing at it. It doesn't. It says studio.
Well, it does look like stupid, can I say? And also above here, which you wiped out, it said penalties.
Yes.
So I thought, what driver was driving stupidly? And even if he was stupid,
I think it's the penalties that were stupid.
That's quite a hard way to. That's quite a hard way to. I was like, that's quite harsh. But yeah.
There you go.
We got to the studio.
The magic behind the scenes. How about we hear from the top 3 drivers from the Turkish Grand Prix? In 3rd place, Sergio Perez. In 2nd place, Max Verstappen, and your race winner, Valtteri Bottas.
Checo, hey, congratulations. P3 today, your first podium in 9 races, and you said you wanted it. You got it. How tough was it out there, though?
Yeah, it's been a while since I'm not on the podium. Unfortunately, I think the last couple of races we've been simply so unlucky. You know, we had podiums there, podium positions pretty much in all of them. But today it's a special podium, you know, because it's one of those days that I wasn't fully comfortable with the car, especially on that first stint. It made it very tricky, and yeah, it was good to get that podium. I think I learned a lot from my first stint to apply it onto my second one, and how I bring the tire in. That made a good difference.
A brilliant day for you personally, a great day for the team as well, with P2 and P3, Max retaking the lead, the gap closing in the title fight for the Constructors' Championship too. What is the feeling right now in Red Bull camp?
Yeah, we gotta be perfect. You know, I think this track it was a Mercedes track again. You know, I think they had the upper hand on us, but I really hope that from Austin onwards we can be stronger than them.
Max, hello. P2 today, well done. It feels as though you maximised the car. You did all you could today. Is that reflective of the performance out there for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had, in general, quite a decent race. I think we maximised the result. Valtteri was a little bit faster, but of course this whole weekend we were a bit behind in pace compared to Mercedes. And this race was all about just managing the tyres to a certain lap. We then had to pit for another set and again bring that to the end. Which wasn't the most fun to drive, because normally you want to push a little bit more, but yeah, as a team, you know, to finish 2nd and 3rd here was a very good result.
Yeah, it's a brilliant day for Red Bull and a good day for yourself. You've retaken the lead in that title fight. I know you're not being drawn too much on Lewis Hamilton, but just a word on the fact that you're going into the last 6 races of the season with a 6-point lead.
Yeah, I wish I had a bit more pace in the car, so it would have been a bit easier, but we are in the fight, and yeah, we keep fighting, and we'll see in the coming races how competitive we are going to be.
On to Austin then. Thank you, Max. Well done today. Valtteri, congratulations. You've not won a race since Sochi 2020. How good does this feel right now to do so with such an accomplished drive?
It feels awesome, you know, it feels good, and I don't know, almost like a relief that I actually won a race this year. It's been a while, so yeah, really, and it was not an easy race win. So with these conditions, just needed like full focus, non-stop, and couldn't do any mistakes. And actually, you know, the pace I had was really good, so I was confident with the car.
Yeah, you've looked quick all weekend. You mentioned how tough the conditions were. You did it very much the hard way. I know it's been an incredibly difficult season for you so far. Does this go some way to alleviating that pressure you've had?
I feel like, yeah, since Monza, things have been going quite well and quite nicely, and definitely have less pressure about it. Well, there's no pressure about anything, so I can just really enjoy, focus on the driving, and that seems to work.
Lovely stuff to hear from the race winner. And Alex, we were just having a little chat off cam about how much he really does deserve that win.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell, even himself, of course, but the team as well, his side of the garage, you could tell there was that lovely kind of energy within it. Even when, you know, when he got past Charles, I quite like that communication, you know. There was that excitement and buzz, and he's a driver who I don't think gets the praise that he ought to get. And I think, you know, just a great weekend, and he's been in control the whole race. He was yeah, he was bossing it today.
And he's had a really good run of form recently. I think, you know, ever since it became clear he wasn't going to stay with Mercedes next year. Monza, I think, a prime example of a race weekend where he was on top the whole way through without that penalty throwing him to the back. That was his weekend, hands down. And he's had a couple of them. And this weekend, similar.
Exactly. We'll see how it goes on forwards. But as you said, it looks like he's taking a gear drive. Maybe, you know, less to worry about, more selfish, more determined, and he's got this this kind of, I don't know, this movement about him, and I feel like you know, even today compared to last year, it was such a big difference.
Yeah, beautifully put, man, beautifully put. Right, let's have a look at the constructors and drivers standings at the end of this Turkish Grand Prix, because it's all changed at the top again in the drivers standings. Max Verstappen, 262.5 points, placed 256.5 points, with Valtteri Bottas third on 177, Lando fourth on 145, 10 ahead of Sergio Perez. Then it's Sainz and Leclerc, Ricciardo and Gasly, Fernando Alonso rounding out the top 10. Behind them, it's Ocon and Vettel, Stroll and Tsunoda, Russell and Latifi, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, Schumacher, Kubica and Nikita Mazepin, somehow 21st in a 20-driver championship. In constructors, Mercedes at the top, 433.5, Red Bull 397.5, then McLaren and Ferrari, look at that, 7.5 points the difference between them. Then Alpine and AlphaTauri, Aston Martin and Williams, Alfa Romeo and Haas in 10th. And that is pretty much it. Alex, a great day here. Not possibly an all-time classic race, but an interesting race. And I think fascinating and intriguing watching how everybody tried to manage those tyres, and some so nearly got that call right.
Yeah, it seems like we've been blessed with these last few races where weather's come into it, and the order maybe this weekend wasn't as shaken as it was in Sochi, but at the same time, it was nice to see. It was much more of this, you know, driver versus the weather, and it was more of a tactical race rather than a pure overtaking fest. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
It was a great day. It was a great day. Thank you so much for being on the show, man. I really appreciate it. We are so excited to see you back to racing ways next year with Williams. Can't wait to see how that all shakes out. I'll say that now in case we don't have you back on the show before the end of the year. Sure. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in as the top three drivers are about to actually walk through at the end of a very decent, very productive day for them. Go on then, Rich, turn around and see if you can get them. Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez walking home at the end of the Turkish Grand Prix. Our thanks, of course, to Jason Tahinchi and to Laura Winter, to Alex Albon, to Sam Collins back at the studio, and to all of you for tuning in at home. We will be back in Austin in 2 weeks' time. But for now, from all of us here, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next one. That is your lot.